I studied in Queen Mary School, and I was born in Shapurbag, which is only 5 minutes away from Queen Mary School. And in between there is my Aslaji Agyari. That has been my entire world all my life, because I used to run to school and come back for lunch and go again. And when I finished school, then I was in Wilson College for 4 years, and then came back to school as a student teacher, went further, finished my B.Ed in St. Xavier's Institute of Education, and then I was back in Queen Mary School for 36 years of my life. So my whole life has been in this beautiful little circle, and not only was I born in Shapurbag, I'm still living in Shapurbag at the age of 81. God has been very good to me that I have not had to move out at all. Talking about my school, we were extremely happy. I was extremely happy as a child with my mummy and daddy, and I've never ever had a slap from them, or even a scolding I cannot remember. And therefore when I'm teaching, I'm always teaching out of love and never out of fear. I don't think we can teach out of fear. Love is the central point of everything in our lives. I love my teachers, I love my students, I love my family, I love everybody. And that's one of the legacies that my dad left me. But besides that, we had marvelous teachers in Queen Mary School. Our Mrs. Setna, Mary Setna, she was a Queen Marian herself, and she taught us elocution and drama. Amazing. For more than 40 years, she was a teacher in our school. Maybe even 45 years or so. And because of her, so many decades of Queen Marians are able to speak perfect English with perfect diction the way she taught us. She taught us that V is pronounced with your upper teeth on your lower lip. That W is pronounced with a circle like this, was. And she taught us every word's pronunciation and diction. Similarly, we had our art teacher who was Temi Mehta. Temi Mehta was a superb artist herself, and we would draw little things, but with one stroke or another stroke, she would make our miserable little drawing into a beautiful painting. She used to have one-man shows of exhibitions, and we used to help her in that. Then we had our music teacher, Norma Gasper. We thoroughly enjoyed our music classes. And finally, we had our wonderful PE teacher, physical education teacher, who was Rhoda Shroff, and then she became Rhoda Dastur. She would come in her young teenager she was when she taught us, very pretty, in her one-piece uniform, and she would do headstand and handstand and all kinds of postures with us. And we, even at that time, had a superb gymnasium in Queen Mary School with ropes and a horse to jump over and bars over which we could do headstand, etc., handstand, etc. So we had and she also taught us poise. She taught us how to stand, how to sit, how to walk, how to talk, how to laugh. That is why a Queen Marian always stands tall. Her laughter is not crude. Even laughter can be very hearty, but never crude. Laughter too has to have some kind of elegance in it. And that is what we learned. All these 4 teachers were stalwarts in their subject. And they were the ones who made our character, who built our character. One more person I have to talk about is Miss Shelton. Miss Shelton was our amazing British teacher who came from UK, because ours is a British mission school under the ZBMM mission, and then it became BMMF, Bible Medical Missionary Fellowship. So we used to be taught by so many teachers, but they always sent one British lady as the principal. And Miss Shelton was our last British principal, but she came first and we as a teacher, and we were students for class 8, 9, 10 and 11 with her. it was amazing. The things she taught us, we will never ever forget. She taught us that there are no inventions in life. There are only discoveries in life. And she gave us examples. There was a bell jar, and in the bell jar, they had put one tiny glowworm and a big spider, which is the victim of the tiny glowworm. The glowworm would come and prick the spider, and the spider would collapse as if dead. Then they would remove the glowworm from the bell jar, and after some time the spider would perk up and start walking. The glowworm had only injected anesthesia into the spider. So anesthesia, which has been the greatest invention in medicine, was not invented, but it was a discovery of nature. Similarly, the bat. She showed us a bat in a huge cage. And the bat is blind, so it cannot see, but it wants to get out of the cage. So it flies, and somehow from its mouth, some kind of sound comes out. So the bat very, very cleverly, coming near the bars, it turns sideways and vertically then gets out of the cage through the bars. This is the radar system that we have been using in battle and war, where the aeroplanes require to get signals from the enemy planes and they catch them. She also talked to us about the weaver bird, how the weaver bird weaves its nest and the tailor bird stitches its nest. Wonderful things. She taught us that the snowflake, there are billions and jillions of snowflakes in the world. Think of the Himalayas, think of the Alps, think of the Apennines and the Rockies and the large snowfields that there are. But every snowflake has a different pattern. Every snowflake is hexagonal, six-sided, but every snowflake has a different pattern. The mind boggles to think about the variety in nature, and yet people have a doubt than the existence of God. Who but God Almighty could have imagined, could have created such variety? And then she taught us about the prism. We had experiments with the prism and the sunlight passing through and refracting into the rainbow colors. So every raindrop in the cloud acts as a prism, and that is how the sun's rays passing through the raindrop brings about the beautiful rainbow with its violet, indigo, blue, green, yellow, orange, red colors. That is the marvel of nature that she taught us and made us understand. And we used to listen agog. How she introduced physics, chemistry and biology in our school. Formerly we only had physiology, hygiene. Myself and my very best friend Dinu, who's Dinu Damania, who was Dinu Dubash, and another friend Aban Khursigara. Three of us, we used to run to school together, and we always hung around in the school. We never wanted to come home. So Miss Shelton would take our help to arrange the chairs for PTA meetings which would take place after school. She took our help. We converted the old physiology, hygiene laboratory into a physics, chemistry, bio laboratory. We also converted an old dirty bathroom with cockroaches or whatnot. We cleaned it out and we converted that into a dark room for photography. She not only taught us how to take pictures, she also taught us developing and printing. And we were so excited, I cannot tell you, because she brought the enlarger. The dark room would be completely dark, but before that we had to first decide how many seconds to put the black and white pictures which we had, photographs, under the paper, under the photographic paper. Then the light would be switched off and we would count 1, 2, 3, 4. And the light would be put off. Then we would put the paper into the first dish which was the developer. Then into the second dish, which was the water made softer. Then into the third dish, which had the acid hypo. That is where the picture formed and got fixed. It was like magic to see the white blank sheet have the photograph on it. I have some pictures which we had developed and printed. I can put them in an exhibition if you want.
Hello friends, it has been my proud privilege to meet a lady like Mrs. Rati Wadia, who is such an inspirational figure, and be part of my journey. I met Mrs. Wadia in 1996, and she has continued to motivate me and inspire me with a zeal and passion for life. She's a woman who has stood for what is right, and she's not frightened of speaking her mind. I love the courage with which she goes ahead. I love the fact that even today at 81, she's so involved in different projects to bring up children, to help children, to make them grow, to reach out internationally. That is an inspiring achievement. I just hope and pray that if I live to be 81, I'd love to be like her. Still passionate about life, still learning, still growing. Thank you, Mrs. Wadia, because you have enriched my life, enriched my journey with your presence, your words of wisdom, your softness, your touch. They are so wonderful, so loving, so soothing that you make the journey of life so much more meaningful. Thank you. Your presence in my life, in fact in my life, my sister's life, my family, is truly beautiful. I will not forget that touch, your personal touch, when you came to meet my mother, who was suffering from cancer. You had not known her, but yet you formed a bond with her. I think that is the beauty of your life, that you reach out to people, you become human, you reach out to their heart, you conquer hearts, you conquer minds. Keep flourishing, keep rising, keep shining.
This is the mug my son Hoshner made for me on my 75th birthday. Can you read? And this is the student of mine who thought of the brilliant idea of making a documentary on me. I don't understand why.
Thank you, ma'am.
Talking about my childhood, we were really blessed. I had a wonderful, happy childhood. I think I must be having a charmed life because not only was my childhood happy, my school days were very happy, my growing up years were very happy. I was very happy with my mom and dad and our sisters. And as I grew up and got married, I was very happy with my husband and my children. And also I was extremely happy as a teacher in Queen Mary School. She sailed away on a lovely summer's day on the back of a crocodile. You see, said she, he's as tame can be. I'll ride you down the Nile. The croc winked his eye, as she waved her friends goodbye, wearing a lovely smile. By the end of the ride, the lady was inside, and the smile of the crocodile, which was my life. Born in Shapurbaga, lived here for 81 years of my life. I can't ever remember a single slap or a single shouting or scolding from my mom and dad. I think because of that, I also grew up to be a teacher who brought up her students. I brought up my students with love, and I always taught through love, never through fear. I don't think any child can learn through fear as she can learn through love. I love all my children. And that's one of the legacies of my wonderful, charming, handsome dad. I'm the richest person in the world, I think, because of the 9 legacies of my wonderful, charming dad. Today I'm going to tell you something which is what you may have never heard before. I'm going to tell you about the 9 legacies of my wonderful, handsome, charming dad. And my mom too. My dad was so handsome, everyone called him Clark Gable, David Niven, and James Bond rolled into one. I'll show you a picture of his when he was young. Now, the first legacy was love. My dad loved the world and its wife, everybody he loved. And I also love everybody, and that is so wonderful because it gives so much joy and happiness. Love is the only quality that multiplies when you give it and does not diminish. The second legacy of my dad was integrity, truthfulness, absolute truthfulness to the core. And I always tell my thousands of children, if you are honest in everything that you do, truthful, God above will protect you. Not a hair of your head will be touched if you are honest. And it's amazing that that same quality is shown in Julius Caesar when Brutus says, I am armed so strong in honesty, they pass by me as the idle wind that I respect not. All the threats, everything passes by. And this is an amazing metaphor that our peon, Haribhai, in Queen Mary School used once, and I was amazed because he was an illiterate person, not educated. We were in great trouble when I was a teacher, and we were threatened, and so at one point of time, one teacher was thrown out of the school. The services were terminated. So we all went on hunger strike, all the teachers, we went on hunger strike. And all our children were sitting in the compound, and we were sitting, all of us on one side, with a hunger strike board in our hands. Then I had gone up to my office for some work. So I was feeling very sad, because as a teacher, we always loved to be with our children in the classroom. And Haribhai came at that point of time. He was our fat, roly-poly peon since he was a kid. And he looked at me and he said, in Gujarati, he told me, don't worry. Truthfulness, integrity, he said, is such a shield that any arrow which is thrown will bounce back. Don't worry. Imagine a puny, uneducated, illiterate, giving a metaphor which is used by Brutus in Julius Caesar. I've always given that example when I teach my children. The third legacy of my dad was dignity of the human being. My dad was no respecter of persons. He saw the divine in every human being. When he saw the people who used to carry our garbage out, sometimes they would be sitting down on the steps. My dad would not talk to them without sorry, please, thank you. And when my dad passed away, they came and cried, which I think is a greater tribute than Queen Elizabeth crying for him, because he understood, maybe they were the only ones who were treated like human beings by my dad and by nobody else. The fourth legacy of my dad was contentment. He would say, luxury is artificial poverty. Contentment is natural wealth. I gave that as an essay topic to my students. And how true it is. If you are not contented in life, we have to pity those who are so discontented with everything. They have a house and they'll say, oh my, I've got this miserable house. Look at my friends, they've got a beautiful bungalow in Lonavala. When they get a beautiful bungalow in Lonavala, they say, but what can I do with a bungalow in Lonavala? Those neighbors of ours, they have a Riviera in France. So we have to feel sorry for them because they do not have the capacity to be happy. My dad was such a contented person, I cannot tell you. His father passed away when he was 9 years old. So their life was a very, very simple life of maybe a low middle class group. And yet his cousins were all, or his uncles and aunts, his mamas, they were all rich Parsis living in Aden with salt mines and stores. But my dad never ever felt, why are my cousins rolling in luxury and we are living such a simple life. He loved his cousins and they loved him, and that was all that life was all about. 4 legacies of my dad. And I thought that there were only 4 legacies. But one day, another miracle happened in my life. Every moment of my life is a miracle. I was teaching 2 little children. They were about 12 years old. And one little chap is putting his hand up because I had just talked to them about the legacies, and they were writing down in their exercise book. He said, ma'am, may I tell you something? Ma'am, may I tell you something? Ma'am, may I say something? He'd always come and say that. I said, yes. And he's telling me, ma'am, I know the 5th legacy of your dad. I got the shock of my life. My dad passed away in 1982. He must have been born in 2010 or whatever. And how on earth could he tell me this? So I said, what? And you know what he said? To be happy under all circumstances. I was stunned because that was so true about my dad. He always used to keep us cheerful and happy and smiling in spite of all the problems that we may have to go across. I was wondering how he could have thought of that. And then I thought maybe he saw me through the passing away of my husband. Because my husband had also been teaching him science. Though he had never been a teacher, I had persuaded him and he started teaching him. And my daughter had said, Mom, Dad is a different person when he's teaching. And after 1.5 years, he passed away. So Neil, who was my student, and the mother also, they were crying away. After some time, I told them, shall I get another teacher for you? He said, no, I only wanted Daddy uncle, now I don't want anybody else. And some time later, he brought 2 flowers, beautiful asters, one red, one yellow. He said, this is for Daddy uncle. I got 79.5 out of 80 for my science. I was shocked because I've been teaching for so many years. Not a single student of mine had got 79.5 out of 80 for English. And there I said, I'm sure my daddy is looking at you from up above. And I took the flowers and I put them near his picture, and they were blooming for 1 week. So he had seen me living through the passing away of my husband, because life has to go on and we have to take everything in our stride. What an amazing lesson my little fellow taught us. And so that became the 5th legacy of my dad. Then I thought there must be others. So the 6th legacy of my dad was reliability. I always tell my children, say what you mean what you say, and do what you say. Otherwise, don't say it. मुंह के बोल पत्थर की लकीर होनी चाहिए. And if that you follow, then you are reliable. Then people will trust you because you will not move from whatever you have said. My wonderful Miss Shelton, our principal and teacher, British lady, who was a genius, she told us when we were in standard 11, before she wrote our testimonials, she said the most important word in your testimonial is the word reliable. Though it sounds like boasting, I was so happy when I saw that in my testimonial which she had put in. I still have that testimonial with me. I'd like to do a picture of it and show you. She was an amazing person. The next legacy is being independent. You may have all the wealth in the world. That doesn't mean you sit back and say, so and so, Maria or whatever, give me a glass of water, or put on my shoes for me. As we grow up, surely a few things we have to learn to do ourselves. The dignity of human labor that we have to learn. We have to drinking water, taking our dinner plate to the basin and rinsing it, washing our own clothes. Surely a few of these things we can do and as we are growing up, otherwise we will never be able to do it when we are grown up. Believe it or not, my dad was not a man who would bully his wife. When he went out of town, he had to go several times because he was a sales supervisor in Hindustan Levers. If his button broke, he would stitch it himself. He would pack his own bag. There are many husbands who will tell their wives, you pack my bag. What nonsense. These are beautiful lessons in life that I have learned from my dad. Not that he told me anything, just by living his life, it has come to me through osmosis, I think. And the next one, the 8th one, is value for money. We have to teach our children value for money. Parents, they work so hard, they do so much for their children to earn so that they can give them good food, good clothes, a good home and good education. Do we realize that? Do all the children realize that? Do they understand that? Do they appreciate that? So often, children of the present day and age, they insist on a 45,000 rupee laptop or a 50,000 rupee special mobile, not realizing how much effort mommy and daddy have to make to fulfill those demands. We never had such ideas in our head, nor did my children, thank God. Because we wouldn't have been able to fulfill such wishes and that would have made us unhappy and them unhappy. But we always grew up with the feeling that we want to give our mummy daddy something. And when I had my first job, I had just finished my senior Cambridge exam from Queen Mary School, and my Masi, my mom's sister, came home to visit us. She said, Rati, would you like to have a little teaching job? You only have to teach for 1 hour in Kawasi Jahangir School at Tardeo, and that is 1 hour before their school teaching because they are wanting to improve their English of the children. I said yes. I was so happy that I would get a little job even before I finished my college education. So I would go from home first to the school, teach them for that 1 hour, then go directly to Wilson College, finish my schooling, finish my lectures and come back home. My first salary was 30 rupees a month. I was so excited. I said, oh, this money I'm going to give to my dad. This money I'm going to give to my dad. because I could understand and appreciate how much he had done for us, coming from a simple home as he had done. And I rushed home after the month, after my salary. To my dismay, my 30 rupees had fallen down, and my daddy took out 30 rupees and gave me in my hand. But I just want to tell you, similarly, my son and my daughter, the moment they started earning, whatever little they were earning, part of their salary, they were contributing to the household expenses. And that, I think, is so important, no matter how rich you may be. But every child has to learn to grow up, to be independent, to be standing on his own feet, finally to be able to put food upon the table for his family. It begins only when we are small. And the last legacy, the 9th legacy of my dad, was his unflinching, unstinting, and my mom, their absolute faith in God Almighty. Their absolute faith in God Almighty, which has stood me in good stead, because the same was taught to us in Queen Mary School also. And no matter what happens, if we have that faith, God will pull us through every problem in life. Those are the 9 legacies of my dad. And from my mom, I learned, she used to tell us wonderful stories, all mythological stories about Krishna and Jesus Christ, Zarathustra, and stories of the Shahnameh, Firdausi Tusi's epic poem. Firdausi Tusi was our epic poet. Our means Parsis, Persians, Iranis. And he was called the Homer of the East, because Homer was the Greek epic poet who had written Ulysses, who had written the Iliad and the Odyssey. And Firdausi Tusi had written the Shahnameh, as Valmiki had written the Ramayana, and Vyas had written the Mahabharata. And the last and final epics were written by John Milton, a contemporary of Shakespeare. About my mom, I wanted to say, as we grew up, she was wonderful with children. More than cooking and all, she enjoyed being with all our neighbors, playing games with us downstairs, and taking us on little picnics and things like that. Also, she had a terrific talent. She only had to hear a tune, la 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 la, and she would be able to play it on the piano. She never had a teacher, but she just had that talent. Unfortunately, none of us got that talent. But because of that, we were able to listen to the Blue Danube and classical music like that, which was really amazing for us. And we learned a little bit of just fun dancing. Also, she used to love to tell us mythical stories about Krishna and Jesus Christ, Zarathustra, and as I said, Firdausi Tusi's Shahnameh stories. And that has given me the great love for mythology, which finally goes on to literature. Also, she loved to collect. She used to collect postcards, and some of them I still have with me, old postcards of their actors and actresses and so on. And also postcards of the royal family, somehow or the other, Queen Elizabeth, Queen Victoria. And for them, the great hero was Prince Edward. Prince Edward had given up his crown for his love, because he had loved a lay person. And according to the rules of royalty, they were not allowed to marry a lay person. So he had given up his crown for his love, and therefore all the girls, including my mother, were crazy over him because of the romantic story of Prince Edward. Maybe that also made my heart very full of romance, because throughout my life, when I've been teaching literature, it's all the romance and the idealism that I want to convey to my children, and not any of the hard reality of life. When they grow up, there's much more time for them to get through the realities. Another love of my mom was poetry. And she had a beautiful book called 1001 Gems, given to her as a prize from Princess School where she had studied. I kept it for very long. Finally, I had to discard it because of the worms. But I still have my mother's 2 little books. One is a little book of Grimm's fairy tales. I will show it to you. Grimm's fairy tales when she was a child. Freni Commissariat is written over there. When she was a child, when she married, she became Freni Vanya. I was Miss Vanya to many of my students before I became Mrs. Wadia. So she used to say things like, I slept and dreamt that life was beauty. I awoke and found that life was duty. Little gems like these she would throw into us, and that's what I've been doing to for my students all my life. You know, it's so important the way we live, because the way we live, the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we do everything, our children are following our pattern. Mummies and daddies and teachers, they are following us all the time. I have put a little poem in my husband's cupboard. Dad, watch your step. It's a beautiful, beautiful poem and a beautiful song, because we follow the footsteps of our mummies and daddies, and therefore we have to be so careful. Whatever we do is what is right. It's so important for our children to grow up with going on the right path. There are always the very attractive path which is wrong. The non-attractive path is always right. But that is the one that we have to follow in life if we have to be happy. That is
Hello. How are you?
I'm fine.
We have been friends since long.
Yes, I know. Since we were born.
Yes,
How much do you miss me when I'm not there?
I miss you very much.
We were there together in Queen Mary School. Then which college did we go to?
Went to Wilson College.
Yes, we were in Wilson College together. And all our life we've been together.
Yeah.
And every day we have food together. Even
Yes.
now.
Yes, it's
We are-
very enjoyable.
Yes, very enjoyable. We are 81 years old, both of us.
Yes. And so we enjoy all the.
Years of our life. Yes,
Yes.
we've enjoyed all the years of our life. God has been very good to us, no?
Yeah.
That we are in the same Shapur Bagh for all our life.
Yes.
I'm so happy that you came and you agreed to talk, because they are taking they are making a movie of me. Can they make a movie of me without Dino?
With you.
So it's really wonderful that you were able to come.
Yeah.
Hi, I've come here to praise Rati Wadia, my teacher, Mrs. Wadia, who taught me, I think, from the time I was in the 5th standard to the 11th standard. I was very lucky to have her as a teacher for several reasons. She had real passion for the subject, for literature, and she had great erudition. So the combination is unbeatable. She knew the texts inside out. She related to them personally. Anyone who has ever been taught Shakespeare or Dickens or Bernard Shaw by Mrs. Wadia will never forget the experience. It's like she channels them and makes them her own. The other fantastic thing about her is that she relates the texts that were written so many years ago, centuries ago, to present day issues and people, and so it becomes a living text instead of something written long ago by someone who's long dead. She also has a great ability to look into people, into her students, and especially me. I still remember when I first went to America when I was 18 years old. She made me a recording, and in that she said, Sudhi, never ever leave anything inside you, always let it out, even if it's just writing to yourself, but don't leave anything inside. And the second thing she recognized was, as I was leaving, she said, it's like the agony and the ecstasy of life, the agony of leaving your family and home, and the ecstasy of what lies ahead. Both sentiments so very true. She knew me really well. And so It is my great privilege and honor and pleasure to say these few words for my dear, dear, dear Mrs. Wadia. Best teacher I've ever had, and I went to some really good colleges, so that's saying something. Bless you, Mrs. Wadia. You have touched the lives of many a student. You will live on in all of us and in all our children who also came to you for Caesar and Macbeth. Love you from a very, very grateful student. Thank you.